The International Development Institute, we're situated, let's to begin, we were started as a Humber Center of Excellence in 2003. We were in the business school, the Faculty of Business, but we're currently located within the International Office, which is part of the academic division. Our work is really focused on internationalization efforts through international development. And I'll talk a little bit more about the work we do. But we currently have about 7 projects, roughly about $6 million of a portfolio under contract. This year has been, despite COVID, has been quite a good year for us project-wise, and we're hoping to end the year going into 2022 with at least 5 more projects added and a bigger portfolio. So it's exciting. Our regions of focus are Sub-Saharan Africa. So we're primarily in Kenya. We're expanding into Ethiopia as well. And you'll hear from some of our partners that involved in the work there. We're also focused on South and Southeast Asia. We've done a lot of work in Indonesia in the past, and currently Bhutan is a country of focus. And we have another speaker who'll touch upon some of the work there as well. If you'd like to know more about us, our website is idi.humber.ca. So we follow at IDI a 5-bucket approach. These are 5 areas within which sort of the IDI's activities fall within. And our theme or thematic areas of focus are what we call an end-to-end solution to education. So access to education, whether that means intervening at the middle school and high school level, successful completion of higher education. So that's looking at education reform, competency-based education and training, teacher training at the institutional post-secondary level. And then finally, successful movement to the workforce, either through jobs, so supporting learners graduate and get jobs, or through entrepreneurships for those that would like to set up their own businesses. I won't go into too much detail about what our projects are, because again, a number of our partners will, they'll be much better at giving you a sense of what our work looks like. But these are just some of the examples. We're currently going to close out the Kenya Education for Employment Program, or KEFEP. Both this project as well as the current Young Africa Works Kenya, they're both managed by CI CAN. And so we're sub-grantees. Funding is to Global Affairs Canada and MasterCard Foundation. And these projects involve working with Kenyan educational institutions to do, teacher training, competency-based education reform, and curriculum development, especially focusing on environmental sustainability and gender mainstreaming. And then the last project, the SEDS project, was in Indonesia. It completed in 2017, and it was a large project that focused on working with universities in Indonesia to help them set up entrepreneurship program and incubation centers for helping young people get into entrepreneurship. We also do training. So training is a little bit different from a project. This is more short-term. It's more specific. It comes at the request of partners. So for example, we did a leadership training for a group of education officials from Indonesia who visited us for a week. Training is usually done in the Canadian setting. And we also did a monitoring and evaluation training 2 years ago for local international development practitioners. To different events. As you can see, these were all in person prior COVID. We have done events. I don't have any pictures of the ones virtually with masks, but every year during International Education Week, we did host a nonprofit marketplace where we invited, organizations. As you can see, they put up their booths and they talk about their work. Hopefully we can do that next year. We also have International Development Week, which is in February of every year. And it's really a time for discussion and dialogue and sharing. And then the final example is an SDG workshop that we did for high school students from Guelph, which was, just in educating them through the SDGs. And we actually did that in partnership with students from the International Development Graduate Certificate Program. So it was really great for us. Research, I won't go again into too much detail here, but just to say our research comes in different ways. We do research on our own work and our own projects, best practices, creating case studies. we apply for funding to do research, externally, depending on a topic of interest. And then finally, we also do things like monitoring and evaluation, impact evaluation, and that would fall under research as well. Finally, we have experiential learning. This is really engaging students in our work, students at Humber, either through work-integrated learning or experiential learning opportunities. And this is an example which we're really proud of. And we have Susan Murray, who'll talk a little bit more and share a story from this experience, I hope. But as you can see, she took a group of students to Kenya, and they helped film our project work, and a documentary was produced. And these photos, as you can see, are students interacting in Kenya, and then we had a panel discussion where they shared their experiences as well. All our work is externally funded, so we apply to call for proposals or call for interest, and that's how we get our funding. And we have a team of about 8 people, and of which Tiffany here is our lead for creative content and communications, and thanks, Tiffany, for setting up this event. So I'm going to stop now, and because I know we have some really exciting speakers lined up. So thank you very much, and I look forward to more questions via email. So bye. Thank you, Tiffany. Over to you.
Thank you, Nalini. I'm just going to share my screen for the agenda today. So as Nalini said, we have a bunch of speakers today, and all of our speakers come from various backgrounds and all play a part in international education. So to start, we have Mr. Tom McElmurray, who is the head of the electrical department at Sigalagala National Polytechnic in Kenya. Alongside him, we have Madame Kathleen Komboka Omambia, who is the Gender Mainstreaming Committee Chairperson and head of the Institutional Management and Hospitality Department at Sigalagala National Polytechnic as well. And we're working with both Mr. Tom and Madame Kathleen for 2 IDI-led projects, the Kenya Education for Employment Program and Young Africa Works TVET 07. We also have Dr. Alice Kande, the Deputy Director of Planning, Research, Outreach, and Policy at the Kenya National Qualifications Authority. She is part of the Young Africa Works Kenya TVET 02 project, Recognition of Prior Learning, which is also led by Humber College and implemented by the Kenya National Qualifications Authority. We also have Mr. Ndungu Kahihu, who was an instructor at Humber College some time ago and is currently the Executive Director at the CAP Youth Empowerment Institute in Kenya, a non-government organization committed to training youth out of school in job entry-level skills. And from our Humber staff, we have Susan Murray, as Nalini mentioned in her presentation. She's the professor of the Bachelor of Film and Media Production program. We have engaged with her with the Film and Media Production program in the past for the Kenya Education for Employment program. We also have Susan McGregor, a professor and program coordinator for the International Development Graduate Program. She's been a longstanding support to the IDI through student participation and lending her expertise to our work. And last, but certainly not least, we have Kent Schroeder, a former Humber faculty member and now the executive director at the Bhutan Canada Foundation. And we continue to engage with him in our work in Bhutan. Again, I ask all of our listeners to write any of their questions in the chat box below, and then they have a few minutes to answer them. So up first, we have Mr. Tom. If you can please turn on your screen and mic. Tom?
Hello, Tiffany.
Hi, Tom.
Yeah, my camera cannot turn on. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the control from your side. Or I just proceed without a camera.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I can't control your camera.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Let me just tell everyone what you'll be speaking on today. I'm sorry. So Tom will share how international partnerships have enhanced Sigalagala National Polytechnic's technical and vocational education and training and benefited the staff and students. So Tom, whenever you're ready, go take it away.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I thank the organizers for this event for having invited me to tell a story. My name is Tom McElmurray, the head of Department Electrical and Electronics Engineering, Sigalagala National Polytechnic. The journey started way back in 2017 under the project of KEFEP. And through the project, we are able to do capacity building in CBET approach. We were trained in industry partnership creation pedagogy in CBET, both including technical skills training. Through the project, we were able to be trained to do with things to do with the gender issues. And at SNP now, we have really embraced gender in our curriculum. Environmental sustainability was also another area that the project benefit. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, can you get me?
We lost you for a minute, Tom.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I received it. So just to go back, I was just telling a story that through the project of KEFEP, SNP trainers were able to be trained in pedagogy and CBET approach. We were able to be trained and practice on how to develop a CBET curriculum. It was a very good and exciting experience developing a CBET curriculum. Also, we learned how to embed gender issues in the curriculum, delivery, environmental sustainability. We had several exciting benchmarking trips for our Canadian partners visiting our institution, and also SNP visiting Humber on 2 occasions, just to see how things are done differently by our partners. And we really learned a lot from those either in-country training and benchmarking trips to Humber College. Through the partnership, I'm also glad to inform the audience that we have set up a CBET resource center, which is actually being utilized to refresh trainers on CBET. And one of the trips that our partners made to our institution, we were able to have the students from Hampa exchanging with our students at SNP, and actually the am I back?
Yes, we lost you again.
There's a fluctuation in the internet. The students were from the mass media department. Just to wind up the story is that through our engagement with the Humber College, we were given the confidence and the knowledge and the skills to start up CBET courses at our institution, and I'm glad to report that we have rolled out 30 plus CBET courses in our institution, and that is, we derived that encouragement and courage from our partners. At the moment, just to make sure that our female students are enrolled and retained in the college, we are setting up a breastfeeding center, which will ensure that our female students don't drop out because of becoming mothers during their session in the college. And we are happy with that innovation at SNP. Lastly, the partnership has really created for us international friends. And I'm glad to report that a fraction of Humber is at S&P. And finally, we have been internationalized by our international partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tom, for sharing. If anyone has any questions, please write in the chat and we'll send it over to Tom later. Again, thank you, Tom. Up next, we have Madame Kathleen, who will share the experience of women accessing higher education in Kenya. Kathleen? It might be an internet.
Okay. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi. How are you?
Hi, Nalili and the rest. Thank you very much for and I would like to share on maybe I can share screen. So the experience of women access to higher education in Kenya. Briefly, I may say in Kenya, education is slowly becoming more and more accessible to Kenyan citizens. Because in 2003, Kenya's government created a free primary education program. By 2008, it instituted the same for secondary school, so that those ones who are proceeding from primary, we could have 100% transition. More recently, Kenya published an education sector plan for 2018-2022. It aims to build upon its 2013 to 2018 strategy, as well as improve access to education. Some of these strategies will improve female education in Kenya. They include HELB, whereby they are given higher education loan. And then there is government capitation, which has specifically been set aside for technical institutions. And there is also for female engaged in technical courses and the STEM courses. So we also have challenges for female higher education because we have barriers that come about. We cannot access higher education if we not have the basic education. So that means we need to take care of the basic education, secondary education, then we can have a procession to higher education. So some of the barriers include domestic responsibilities. You'll get that maybe if a parent passes on, or in some communities, they believe that it's the work of the female to take up the responsibilities. So they are not left to go to higher education. They are told that by getting to the 12th grade, that one is enough for them. So they are told now you have to come back and take care of the responsibilities. There's also the forced marriages, whereby some cultures, they believe that once the girl has reached the 12th grade, that one is enough. There's also traditional male preference factor, whereby in case they are short of resources, you'll get that it is the female who are going, the male who are going to be given preference over the female. Then that attitude that no females are not supposed to be in this group, the stereotyping ones. Then there is the financial constraint, especially in the rural Kenya. There is the inappropriate training environment where there is maybe sexual harassment, lack of security, including sexual harassment. Then there is also the information and knowledge gaps. Like for this government capitation, you'll get that some people are not even aware that there is that government capitation or there is that higher education loans board. So once they meet or continue, there is also low prospects for decent work. Because it is believed that the decent works are going to be left for men and not female. Then there is also low self-confidence for female, also fear of challenging the status quo. Another another challenge that we have in Kenya is drugs, especially in the coastal region of Kenya. You get that there is that drug addiction whereby the girls, they practice taking drugs in high school. So by the time they are out of high school, they are not able to proceed for higher education. And lastly, we also have the impact of COVID-19, which has affected the progression of the female to higher education. Because like the statistics which currently show there are so many girls who got pregnant during the period, which also raised a concern. That is why even Sigalagala has came up with that project of breastfeeding, and thanks to CICAN for the support. Then when female access higher education, what are the importances? There are very many benefits. Some of the benefits include they meet the job market demand, they acquire the important skills that are needed, and then it also accelerates the career progression, because nowadays you can see in Kenya most of our females are really going upward. They're progressing career-wise. We have very many women who are progressing, and thanks to the higher education. Then it increases employment opportunities. It also contributes to better pay, increases promotion opportunities. Like in the jobs, you cannot just wait as a female that you want to be promoted if you don't have that education. So education will assist in the promotion. Then provides financial security, brings about equality, allows for self-dependence, makes one's dreams come true, contributes to a safer world, as in people are able to choose between they're able to choose the difference between good and wrong, so making the world a safer place. It gives one confidence and makes one feel as part of the society. Then it also contributes to the economic growth on a national level. So what can be done for these challenges? We cannot just look at the challenges on how are they going to join the higher education. We also have to look at, how are we going to retain them in those higher education training, higher education trainings. And we also have to create a vision for them. Let them look beyond the training. What are they going to gain after the training? So I've looked at them in 4 areas. So the first one is accessing of training. What we need to do is ending the practice of child and forced marriages, which violate girls' rights to a healthy, fulfilling life. Another one is proper implementation of government's affirmative action. Doing agenda analysis such as labor market scans and curriculum gap audit, flexible blending learning, recognition of prior learning, community outreach, sensitization, and doing mentorship programs. Another way that now the next thing that we have to look at is how to maintain them in those institutions. One, we have to provide a safe and secure learning environment, providing gender sensitive equipment, and also considering career guidance and counseling. So after that, there is also the vocational and job place. So what do? We must have workplace gender policy ratification and implementation. Then placement and apprenticeship should not be gender bias. We should have training on life skills, continuous survey on labor market information, then granting women full equality under all laws and ending our policies that disadvantage women. Also eliminating patriarchal attitudes and behaviors that cause women to suffer and that prevent them from accessing positions of power. Providing adequate parental leave and childcare opportunities that enable women to have the same unhindered career progression as their male partners. And finally, we should empower them on the entrepreneurial skills by having inclusive innovation and business incubation, and also training them on life skills. Also, the employers also play a bigger part, because the moment they are in higher education, let them know that there is hope or there is light at the end of the tunnel. They're not just training. Let them see something better ahead of them. So it is also the responsibility of the stakeholders who are our employers and the industry. They should offer equal opportunities during recruitment for industry attachment, internship, apprenticeship, and employment, because you'll get that most of the time you'll get those jobs that are male dominated in Kenya, you'll get that females are being discriminated. Like if you can check online, there is a program which comes on Tuesdays in the Citizen TV in Kenya. You'll see whereby they normally talk about the exceptional women who normally venture especially into the fields of male dominated areas. So the employers need to be informed to offer equal opportunities. Then help them understand international, national, and organizational gender-related policies, laws, and guidelines through training and mentorship. That is, we should do sensitization to them. And then involvement or engagement on devoid of positional and job allocation bias, so that we encourage and support participation for all, including non-traditional roles. Then they should also have deliberate and prompt actions in gender-related issues. That is addressing gender-based issues such as sexual harassment at the workplace, sexist views, and gender stereotypes, gender-based violence as soon as they occur on case basis. Then another one finally is to have an equal pay or reward for equal work done, as well as same disciplinary actions for same actions, because you'll get that in some places male and female can do the same job, but the male are paid more compared to female. Finally, I'll leave ourselves with a take home. It says girls' education has been proven to be one of the most beneficial strategies to enhance development and economic growth. Educated mothers tend to have healthy children, and that these children are also more likely to attend school, breaking the cycle of illiteracy and poverty. Actually, from the village where I come from, most of the parents, they say that it's better to have more girls than having boys, because once they get successful out there, the girls tend to look back to the parents and take care of them, unlike to men who get married and disappear from home with their families. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathleen. You've given us a lot of insight on women in education. We're glad to hear about the progression of women in higher education and employment and the steps to further that progression as well. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
So up next, we have Dr. Alice Kande, who will speak on the benefits of recognizing the skills of those outside of the formal education system for communities and the economy. You're muted.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry, I am trying to change that background. It's not very nice. Sorry about that. Thank you so much. And sorry for the seconds that has taken. You can hear me well now?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. And once again, Nalini, Tiffany, and Tim, I really appreciate the opportunity to really take part in this discussion. I'm so delighted, always delighted to really have these discussions with you. As I was earlier introduced, I am Alice. I work for the Kenya National Qualifications Authority. We are working very, very closely with the Humber Consortium team, the team that is here on a project called the Young Africa Works Project. First, we are aware about it. And the objective is generally making sure that we're able to roll out recognition of prior learning in the country. And I believe that is why I was given this topic, because it is so much in line with what we are doing together. And of course, in line with what my organization does, because one of the objectives or the functions of the institution that I work for, that is Kenya National Qualifications Authority, is to provide for lifelong learning. And of course, we realize that recognizing prior learning is actually a tool or a bridge towards giving opportunities to those who would want to proceed with or to continue learning throughout their lives. And so generally, as a way of introducing, I was reading somewhere that over 60% of the global workforce is actually currently engaged in informal employment. And that brings me now to our local context, where in our country, where we have over 85% of our youth, because basically most of the people who are in the informal sector are mainly the youth. In our country, over 85% of those are in informal employment. And you can imagine, if you're talking about the youth, these are people who are energetic, they are productive, they have the energy. And that is why, as a country, it has actually been realized that there's need to really take advantage of the informal sector, because it actually contributes greatly even to our GDP. In fact, currently, the informal sector accounts for between 35 to 38% of the GDP. And so its role even in the economy of the country is really, really great. And of course, this explains why, as a country, we are very keen to make sure that we make the best out of this sector. This sector that has acquired, that comprises of the individuals who have acquired skills outside the formal education system. Of course, we do realize that there are those who probably went through the formal education system, but probably at some point they decided to jump or cross over to the informal sector. But again, there are those who actually, probably for one reason or another, they were not able, they didn't have the opportunity to go through the formal education system. And they found themselves in the informal sector because they had to make a living. And of course, the reality of the matter is that majority of those who are in the informal sector are poorer and more vulnerable than those who are in formal employment. Those who are in the formal employment have more opportunities because they seemingly more structured way and systems of making them grow. But in the informal sector, that system, that structure is not there. And so luck is on those who are really aggressive, or probably they're able to position themselves so that, they are able to sell out their merchandise and the skills that they have to be able to position themselves in the sector. And so the benefits of recognizing these skills is it therefore cuts across to a number of constituencies, if I may say. First of all, maybe I would begin with the informal, those who are in the informal sector themselves. When we recognize the skills that have been acquired through practice, someone not going to school, but it is through practice of what you're doing day and night, then that increases the visibility of what you have. And of course, when you're talking about recognizing skills, sorry, probably I am skipping a bit, because in the Kenyan system, we have really formalized this because it is it has been put in even in the policy context. The way in which we are going to recognize, assess these skills, and even certify them. And so what does this mean? That when you get a certificate for that, then your skills are made visible. And what does that mean then? That this enhances your chances of even getting more business of what you are doing, enhances your employability. If one would want to cross over to the formal sector, then that means they have something to show that they have this skill, they have this competence. And if probably they want still to remain in the informal sector, then that means that they have the opportunity to get more job opportunities. And so it really opens doors to so much of those who are in the informal sector. And of course, it builds self-esteem, because it's really good to really show that, I am recognized for what I know. And of course, it is bringing bread to my table. So there's nothing really as good as that. And of course, it promotes inclusivity to this particular segment, because for a long time, there has been this divide between the formal and the informal. And so when the informal sector is actually recognized for what they are doing, then there's that bit of inclusivity. And of course, it is generally good for the country and not just for the individual. And of course, issues of mobility, you're able to move, right? Maybe from one sector, one job to another. In terms of growth, you are also able to advance in terms of career. And of course, we are looking at probably even having people get to pursue now courses in the formal sector, because as I earlier said, a number or most of the people who find themselves in the informal sector, most of them, it wasn't by choice. And so when they get an opportunity or a certificate that would allow them to cross over to the formal sector, then that would really be good for them. And so that is really so great and a welcome opportunity to all those who are in the informal sector who would like to take advantage of this system of recognizing their skills in a formal way. And of course, I also want to mention that as a country, the country also benefits in terms of being able to have a database of those numerous skills, knowledge and competencies that are out there. And of course, so glad to say that now the institution that I work for, Kenya National Qualifications Authority, where again, one of functions is to make sure that we have a database of qualifications. We are looking at being able to have also a database of qualifications or certificates that have been awarded through recognition of prior learning. And so we will be able to see what kind of skills do we have. And so it is also really beneficial to the country of pursuing or recognizing these skills. And so generally what I would say is that recognition of skills that are acquired outside the formal education system, especially for our country, is a timely intervention. In fact, currently we are having a sitting with the leadership of the Jua Kali sector. Jua Kali is actually it's another name for informal sector in Kenya. And this team is very, very keen to ensure that RPL is rolled out soonest possible, but of course in a structured way. We are looking at getting more benefits as a country in terms of economic growth from this sector. Once we roll this out, we are looking at having more people with credible certificates and through recognition of prior learning. And of course, we are looking at setting a benchmark for other countries that are also looking at or are intending to embrace recognition of prior learning. And on that note, I really want to appreciate the partners that we have been working with, including this team here, the team from Canada, the Humber Consortium. We have been doing so much with them for us to get where we are, having formalized the process by having documents prepared, even the policies in place. We have a couple of standards. We have guidelines that will help us in ensuring that we roll out. The activities are carried out in rolling out RPL are not done in haphazard manner, but are done in a very structured way. This team and this project has really helped us, and we are working together, of course, even with the International Labour Organization, that is very, very keen in supporting the rollout of recognition of prior learning. And so as a country, we are very, very excited that this is happening. And we can't wait to see the intended 10,000 trainees go through recognition of prayer learning as per the objective of the Young Africa Works project. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Alice. That was a lot to take in. It's very refreshing to hear about the efforts made to recognize the skills of youth and letting them know that they are seen. So thank you very much. So up next, we have Mr. Ndungu Kahihu, who will share how experiential education and international partnerships have strengthened the impact they're making on youth out of school.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. So I'll share very briefly what I do because we do experiential learning. And then because I had been asked to tell a story, I'll end my sharing by telling a story. So I work for an organization called CAP Youth Empowerment Institute. We do skills training, targeting mostly vulnerable young people. And the model that we use has been tested in Kenya for the last 10 years. And it's been very successful. We have reached well over 80,000 young people, and we are able to connect more than 80% of them to livelihood opportunities. So people always ask me, what's the secret behind the success of this model? There are a couple, but the big one is the focus we place on experiential soft skills training. So we have a mix of skills, obviously the technical skills that are required so that you can do a job, and also basic entrepreneurship skills so that you can employ yourself if you don't get a job. And finally, soft skills, the so-called transferable skills, the skills that you need so that you can do well working with other people. And they are called transferable, obviously, because you take them with you throughout life. They are actually skills for life, not so much skills for work. Although they give you a big edge. They give our young people are far ahead of other young people, even in the labor force, because of those skills. That's what they tell us. That's what their employers tell us. So my story is, what is the most important soft skill for somebody wanting to work in international development? I believe you're told that I used to teach at Humber College. And this is not something I learned from working for CAP. I think it's something I learned from my own students 10 years ago. The most important skill you could ever have is empathy, the ability to put yourself in the position of another person or a group of people, sometimes of a whole country or community, sometimes in the shoes of somebody who may be trying to do you harm. And how do I know this? So I had a wonderful experience teaching at Humber for about 5 years, and then I left Canada and came to Africa because I felt my skills would probably be more useful here. I don't know whether that's true. And the place where I was posted was in the country of Sudan. Those days, the country had not broken into two like it is now, but it seemed to be at war every corner. So the very first place I was posted was Darfur. And then after that, I was posted to Kassala. Then I ended up my term there, about 6 years of work there in South Sudan. And one of the things that I found was being tested to the maximum was my capacity to put myself in the shoes of another person. Because you see, when we were in class in Humber, and I kept thinking about it, there were not very many things we tended to agree, but there was one thing we agreed, that we could all safely blame the government for the mess that the government has caused in development. There was even a module called rights-based development, which started from the premise that the reason we are existing and doing what we do now is because governments have failed. And then I was posted to this place where not only I could not blame the government, but actually blaming the government was no longer that arm of us institution, it was individuals. And I remember making friends with somebody in South Sudan, a very young member of parliament, I think he was barely 25, who had just left the war in the bush, and when the country became independent, he was made into a member of parliament. And he used sometimes to yell at me when I complained to him that there were things they were not doing by asking me, when was the last time somebody tried to shoot at you on your way to work? Of course, never. It had never happened to me. And you tell me it happened to me today. Or when was the last time that you had to go on a demining expedition because some of your constituents demanded that you had to help them to fight land, And I said, I had to say never. One of the things that I really, really learned there was anytime before you pass judgment, it's really, really important for you to try, even briefly, to put yourselves in the the shoes of the person or institution you're about to judge. And it did help me because my interaction changed from, you are not doing this, you should be doing this, I need you to do this for me, you're making my life difficult, to what can I do for you so that you can do the things I would like you to do for me better. It's a lesson I have never forgotten. I'm hoping it's a lesson that you are going to get the chance to test in your own careers in international development, because it's not just a life skill. Like I said, it was a good thing. It made my life easier in a place that was very, very difficult to work, but it has now become a skill for my own life, a philosophy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ndungu, for that very insightful reflection. I think empathy is an important attribute to carry in all aspects of life, especially in international development when you're working with so many various partners. So that was great to hear. Thank you very much. Before we move on to the next speaker, I will let everyone know that we will go 15 minutes over our time, just so everyone does have the chance to share their story. Up next, we have Susan Murray, and she has asked me to share a PowerPoint of her. So just give me one moment, please.
Tiffany, I don't know if you're going to be able to share it. It's actually, I just sent you a screenshot of the first slide because, but if you can do the first slide, that'd be great. And I was in the middle of sending you the second one, but no problem. I don't know why, when I click on that little arrow, I just get a spinning ball. Is there anyone who can help me? I'm not used to being on Teams. Is there anyone who can tech support help me here on how to share images?
Oh,
you want to show an image or a screen? So what you can do, Susan, when you click on the arrow,
yeah,
do you see under share content it says window?
No.
Do you see under share content presenter mode?
It's when I click on the little arrow, it says hide share options, and then I just have a spinning purple.
Oh, okay, then there's something wrong there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Tiffany, if you can, I don't know if you can share the first image. Maybe I'll just work with that.
Sure, just give me one moment. Okay. Sorry.
All right, I will start talking. Hi, everybody. It's really nice to see everybody and be here today. I'm a filmmaker, so I usually have visual aids. So this might be a bit of a challenge, but here we go. So the project that I was involved, thank you. The project that I was involved in was an experiential learning experience with students in the film and media production program. IDI was looking for some social marketing materials for their website and for use with their partners. And they decided to engage film students to create those materials. So in the spring of 2019, myself and 3 students from the film and media production program went to Kenya. And there were a couple of faculty members from the Faculty of Applied Science and Technology who were going to be working with 2 of the partner institutions, working on a sustainability plan for their campuses. So that was part of what we had planned to document. My students were, the program I teach in is a bachelor program, and my students serve their internship between 3rd year and 4th year. And in the winter semester of 3rd year, they take a documentary filmmaking course. So the students were quite well versed in documentary filmmaking at that point. They had all engaged in making 10, 15-minute projects. So they were pretty well primed to complete an internship in film. I'm just going to look at this next slide for myself. So the students who went, we had 3 students. 2 of them had never left North America, and one had only been, one had never left North America, and 2 of them had been overseas, but just on family vacations to holiday destinations. So it was a big leap for them. In terms of integrating academic studies with international learning, pre-departure, they met with the client, which was IDI, They had to research various story components. They had to determine the equipment to take overseas and all the things related to traveling with film gear. They did some country-specific learning, some pre-departure training, and they had to really anticipate the requirements of the mission. So we had about 2 weeks of prep, quite intense for them, I think. And during that time, they had to get all their inoculations and figure out what to pack and all of those things. In the field, they gained a lot of discipline-specific knowledge. So they learned more about documentary storytelling. They had to learn, again, quite specifically about dealing with equipment in the field. There were a couple of days of, oops, we forgot to charge the batteries, or oops, we left the batteries back at the hotel. So there were definitely some growing pains there, but eventually they got the hang of it. They had to deal with evolving story components, which is something that happens on documentary shoots, with a really defined timeline, which was quite different from what they experienced in the semester in the program. Learning to respond to the client's needs. They refined their critical thinking, problem solving, interpersonal and communication skills. They had to learn and develop quite a lot of flexibility in responding to changing circumstances, tolerate ambiguity, develop professional working habits, and exercise quite a bit of self-direction. I think this really built their confidence, and they also learned about the topics that were being covered in the projects they were making. They learned about the Kenyan education reform, they learned about gender equity, and they learned about environmental issues. They ended up making one film about competency-based education and training, another film about gender equality and women's empowerment, and those are both available on the IDI website. Third project about the sustainability initiatives on the 2 campuses is still ongoing, but a trailer for that is available on the IDI website as well. In terms of intercultural learning, students really learned a lot, and I so wish I could show you these photos because they're marvelous photos of them interacting with students at our 2 partner institutions. They learned quite a bit of knowledge about another country, awareness of global issues. They developed more intercultural awareness and competence, a great appreciation of difference, interest in community involvement, and awareness of their own culture and values. And in the fall of that same year, when they returned to Humber for their 4th year, during International Education Week, as Melanie pointed out earlier, we had a panel where they were able to present the work. And it was really great for them because I think a big component of experiential learning is the reflection piece. And having this opportunity to visit Kenya, be involved in this experience, put their academic skills to work, and create this work, and then have a few months to reflect on it and then present it to an audience was very, very valuable for them. I'll quickly share some of the testimonials. One student said, going from an academic setting to applying real-world storytelling, problem solving, and filmmaking on a film in such a foreign place, while still having guidance from a trusted professor, is an experience that will widen my perspective forever. The work, the environment, the people, both Kenyan and Canadian, the practical experience, and the lessons have all had much larger impact than I could have ever hoped. So some great outcomes there with students. This year, I am working on embedding the Sustainable Development Goals in curriculum. So I teach a course in our program called Media for Social Change, and it's an elective for Bachelor of Film and Media students. And this year I decided to use the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework for the course. So students were introduced to the goals, and then with the help of wonderful Clarice Estebar at IDI, they participated in an SDG simulation game, after which they engaged in a reflective process to try to determine which goal best aligned with their own personal values and their goals as change makers. And so once they did that, what they're up to now, which will be done in a couple of weeks, is each student is making a 3 to 5 minute film inspired by a sustainable development goal of their choice. So I have, I think, 5 who are doing gender equity. I think there's one student doing quality education. Somebody's working on decent work and economic growth, and so on. And so at the end of the course, these films are going to be cut together into one long format anthology film. So there's 17 students in the course, so we'll have 17 short films all cut together. And they will be entered into festivals, and hopefully their work will be showcased in that realm. And lastly, I am now seeking a COIL collaborator. So for those of you who don't know, COIL is Collaborative Online International Learning. And the plan is for next year to find a classroom somewhere else in the world that will collaborate with my students on this course, and the films will be made internationally by teams in each of the 2 countries. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Susan. I hope you can share with us those SDG video films, and I hope COIL goes well too. Looking forward to that. And if anyone is interested in the videos that her former students did create, I dropped the link to our website in the chat, and then you can find them all there. Thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you.
Okay, and up next, we have Susan McGregor, who will share. Oh, well, Susan, I have a bunch of things written down, so you can share what you'd like to share.
Story.
Yes.
I'm just going to share a story. I know a lot of people had great data and lots of good lessons, but as my students know, I love a story. And a lot of the earlier speakers spoke about Africa. So for a change, I thought I'd share a story around the absurdity to Humber, working for a organization that did humanitarian logistics. And so that would mean flying NGOs into difficult places that were awkward to get to. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Iraq crisis, which I think most people saw on CNN or BBC or Sky News. But being there was kind of a comedy of errors in many ways, although it was a very serious type of situation. So to start with, I arrived in Amman, Jordan, the beginning of March of that year. I was transferred from the organization's regional office in Uganda. So I was meant to meet my boss and the president of the organization the day after I arrived. I got in late in the evening, but they didn't show up. So I was sitting at breakfast. They didn't show up. So I called the airlines and I was told they missed their connection. So great for me, right? I figure I've got an opportunity to explore Amman. I've never been there before and I don't have any bosses in country, so I'm going to have some fun. As an aside, before I left Uganda, I looked up the temperature in Jordan. It said it was 24 degrees Celsius. I'm thinking, great, my wardrobe from Uganda is going to be just fine. Here's my lesson. I said there wouldn't be any, but there's a few. You want to look at the temperature of where you're going for more than a few days. About a week after I got to Amman, it snowed, and I have sandals, only sandals. So lesson, I should have known better. Amman's at altitude, but anyway, I digress. So my day alone was a great opportunity to explore Amman. I know at the time I knew virtually zero Arabic, so I went to the front desk clerk and asked him to write down the name and address and directions to the hotel. And in case I got lost, I could hand this piece of paper to a taxi driver and hopefully get back to where I started. So Amman's an amazing city. I went down to the amphitheater, which looks like something straight out of ancient Greece. Amman actually was way back when part of sort of Greece's gigantic empire. It was what was called Philadelphia by the Greeks back then. Fantastic city. I'm standing at the amphitheater and I was approached by a local man who he came up to me and said, "Do you speak English?" in perfect English. So of course, having been terrified about being a woman alone in the Middle East because of all the stories everyone keeps talking about, I was a bit trepidatious, but it was totally unfounded. The guy was actually an anthropology professor from McGill in Montreal. He wanted to know if he could practice his English with me, and he would give me a private tour of the museum, which was amazing. He taught me all about the city. He took me into the back rooms of the museum, where all kinds of stuff was like not even available for public display. And then eventually my new friend put me in a cab back to the Howard Johnson's where I was staying. Yes, there's a Howard Johnson's in Amman. It's much nicer than the Howard Johnson's I've stayed in the United States. He gave me his phone number. He gave me a connection on finding an apartment. He was awesome. Anyway, I've kept in touch with him. He's back at McGill. Lovely. So when I got back to the hotel, I dropped by the front desk where there was a message waiting for me. The message, of course, was from my boss, and it said, due to instability in the region and the fact that you're a woman traveling alone, you are not to leave the hotel until we arrive. Oops. I'd been out for the whole day. So anyway, best lessons, right? Again, I'll throw in another lesson. These are things I added from listening to the other presenters. There is a great deal of misconceptions among aid workers, particularly in the West, about the Islamic world, especially about traveling and working in the Islamic world as a foreign woman. And I found most of them to be grossly overstated and often incredibly wrong. I learned so much about the culture in the Middle East. And one thing I did learn is that if a woman asks a man to help them, culturally, they're required to help you. So this was fantastic. I found working in the Middle East, I never had any issues with, being a woman. In fact, I found it a very easy place to work, a very pleasant place to work, a very friendly place to work. So there's the beginning of my story. On to my absurdity. At the time, just prior to the U.S. Invasion, liberation, depending on which side of the story you're on or thinking about, of Iraq, the UN and many countries had sanctions on Iraq. The U.S. took over Iraq, for lack of a better term, but those sanctions didn't go away. Politically, things take a while. So because I was working for an aviation company, we were trying to fly into Iraq, but the Jordanian government wouldn't issue us a flight permit to Iraq because Jordan had sanctions on Iraq, so we weren't allowed to go there, even though Iraq was essentially at this point under the control of the Americans. So in order to get a flight permit to leave Jordan, we had to get an exemption or a exemption from the UN Security Council in New York. This exemption had to be submitted by the Jordanian mission to the UN. So we had to request from the political office in Amman to send a request to their office in New York, who would then bring that to the Security Council and then return everything to us. So this took 3 to 4 days just to get, and we had to do it for every single flight. I had a local operations manager who was absolutely amazing, Suleiman. And after a couple of days of this nonsense, he said to me, we need to fix this. We need to talk to the Queen. So I'm like, I'm lowly NGO worker from Canada. There's no way I'm getting to talk to the Queen. But apparently you can. And apparently it's actually not that complicated in Jordan to get an audience with the Queen if you are a nonprofit, because she's very much involved in humanitarian work. So anyway, once Suleiman got us through to talk to the Queen, everything was much smoother. We still had to go through the process, but it was much smoother. The next sort of level of absurdity was that we had to get a flight permit to overfly Iraq and land in Iraq. And because the airspace was now controlled by the Americans, all the flight permits were being issued out of their air control office in Qatar. So that meant we had to wait till we got our sanctions approval from the UN office in New York, and then apply for a overflight permit to the US Air Force in Qatar. They would only issue permits at midnight the day before the flight. So at midnight, they would tell us, yes, you can go, or no, you can't, and what time we could leave. They gave us a 15-minute window which to leave. So we would then at midnight phone all the passengers and say what time to be at the airport. So kind of crazy, incredibly absurd. So the next level was the issue of fuel. Although Iraq's an oil-producing country, and normally fuel is really cheap in Iraq, the US military had commandeered all the fuel in the country. So we were unable to get fuel, which meant we had to hire a Jordanian trucking company to carry fuel drums into various locations in Iraq for us, and then we would fly into Iraq and refuel from drums. This is a bit, obviously it's absurd, right? We're spending a huge amount of money to transport fuel drums from Jordan on a truck, which is so from a non-oil producing country to an oil producing country on a truck for us to fill up with fuel in a place where the US government actually controls all the fuel, and all the bills for all of this extra logistics that are happening are being paid for by the US government, the very people who don't want to get us the fuel. So it was kind of nuts. I speak about the absurdity of it because we were spending a ridiculous amount of money, and it was always US government money. In the end, just for amusement, we were able to convince the military in Iraq to actually give us fuel. But they didn't have any way for us to pay for it because, of course, they don't have a billing. The military doesn't have a billing system. They generally buy things. They don't sell them. So they just kept these meticulous records, and they told us they were going to send us a bill at the end of the war to our office in our company's head office in Virginia. So we got free fuel from them for about a year and a half. To this date, I don't think anyone's ever sent the NGO a bill. Somebody has probably lost it. But anyway. I just wanted to sort of share some of the craziness, and the lesson really from that is you can have all kinds of book learning, you can have degrees and certificates, but often the only way to get things done is to have an abundance of patience and an abundance of creativity. So I have lots of other stories, as my students know, but in the interest of time, I will end there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Susan. You are such an animated storyteller. It's so nice. I love to listen to all of it. The part where you're wearing sandals in the snow, the billing, and the lessons learned. It was amazing. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And finally, we have Kent Schroeder, who will share what is gross national happiness and what is its application to development and well-being.
Great, thank you very much. It's great to be here. Thanks, Tiffany, for the introduction. As you heard, I work for the Bhutan Canada Foundation, and we're very pleased to partner with Hummer over the last few months in preparing to potentially support a very major education reform process in Bhutan related to Tibet. So we're very excited to potentially moving forward with Hummer on that. What I want to do over the next 5 minutes is give you 3 snapshots or 3 anecdotes from Bhutan, and then end by talking about what they mean for development and well-being, and ultimately what they mean for our potential project for Hummer. So 3 anecdotes. First one. So Bhutan is apparently the only country in the world whose capital city does not have a traffic light. Okay, if you go to the capital city, you'll see there's no traffic light. You'll go to the main intersections, and you'll see these like really beautifully and elaborately painted structures, and underneath them you have the traffic cop really vigorously, diverting traffic around traffic circles. And you'll see that at the 2 main intersections in the capital city. Now, the reality is a number of years ago, the government actually put in a traffic light at these intersections in the capital city, and they didn't last long. After, I think it was just a few weeks, the traffic lights came out again. And the reason was people complained. The Bhutanese people complained. They thought these traffic lights were too impersonal. They were this impersonal technological thing. And they really craved the human connection or the social connection they had with the traffic cop at these traffic circles. That's the first anecdote. Second one, Bhutan, it's in the Himalayas in South Asia, and it has some of the world's largest peaks, the world's largest mountains. And it in fact has the largest unclimbed mountain in the world. Now, you'd think that's a potential source for tourism revenue. If you look at neighboring Nepal, a lot of tourist revenue is made from mountaineering. But Bhutan has in fact outlawed mountaineering. They've made it illegal to mountaineer. And so they're really giving up a significant source of national revenue there. And in fact, quite a few years ago, a climbing club, I think it was from the United States, they offered to pay the Bhutanese government $1 million to summit one peak. And the government turned them down. Again, this is a relatively poor country, and the government turned them down. So the question obviously is why? Well, there's really 2 reasons. The first is an ecological reason. So Bhutan has seen what has happened in neighboring Nepal related to mountaineering in terms of, there's a lot of garbage associated with it. There's deforestation. There's a spoiling of water sources. And Bhutan made the decision that ecologically, the money wasn't worth it. But secondly, and I think this is a really an interesting point, there's also a religious reason that they've outlawed mountaineering. Because as a predominantly Buddhist country, also a minority of Hindu, they believe that deities live at the top of these mountains. And for them, the economics aren't worth it. They don't want to disturb these deities, so mountaineering isn't allowed. Excuse me. Third anecdote. This is related to the COVID response. Now, Bhutan is a very small country. There's under 1 million people there. So in some ways, it's easier to respond to a pandemic like this, but it's also a very remote and rugged country. So people live in these tiny rural villages way up in the Himalayas. So it's also kind of hard to get to many people. But notwithstanding that, Bhutan, I think it's fair to say, has had one of the most successful COVID responses on the planet. I think some other countries have done a bit better, but Bhutan has particularly done a fantastic job. And you have, I think it's somewhere around 95% of the population is double vaccinated. The few times they've gone into lockdown, they've mobilized, the government has mobilized people to within the cities to actually go to your doorstep with food if you need food. So they've done a really stellar job in responding to COVID. But what I want to focus on is not only have they focused on the well-being of their population during COVID, but the government also created a program and mobilized people to ensure stray animals were protected during the pandemic. Okay, so when you have a shutdown, restaurants close, food sources for stray animals are gone. And so the government created this program where people went out and made sure that stray animals their well-being was protected during the pandemic. So what are these three snapshots, right? The traffic light, banning mountaineering, protecting stray animals during a pandemic. What do those have to do with development? Well, I'd suggest they're all a reflection of Bhutan's national development strategy. And this is very much an indigenized national development strategy. It was created in Bhutan. It's based on Bhutanese cultural values. And it's called Gross National Happiness, or GNH. And as that name indicates, that's in distinction to the phrase Gross National Product. And what GNH suggests, it views development and well-being as being more than economic growth. So, traditionally, historically, development is focused on economic growth as the end of the development process. But what GNH does is it understands development as an interdependent and interconnected phenomenon. So economic growth is certainly important to GNH, but it needs to be balanced and it needs to be interconnected with social issues, with ecological issues, cultural issues, and governance issues. So all of those have to be balanced. All of those are interconnected. It's really kind of a Buddhist notion of what development should look like. And I think importantly, it's not only, you not only balance those characteristics for human well-being, but also for the well-being of all sentient beings. So the development equation is not just about humans, it's about humans and their interactions and interdependence with the animal kingdom. Now, kind of a unique and interesting approach to development. So what have been the results outside of those snapshots that I've told you about? What are the results of GNH for development and well-being in Bhutan? I'll end with this. I'll give you a few statistics. So first of all, education is free in the country. Healthcare is free in the country. It's also one of the very few countries in the world that is carbon negative. So it actually sucks out more carbon from the atmosphere than it contributes. 51% of the country is ecologically protected. 72% is covered in forest. There are really, I think anyone who's ever been there, you'll notice very quickly there are thriving cultural traditions there. And perhaps most significantly, poverty has been reduced from, it was 32% in 2007. So a very, very high poverty rate in 2007. That's been reduced to around 8% now in around just over 10 years. So a dramatic reduction in poverty. And I think all of those development gains have occurred in the context of economic growth still occurring. So prior to the pandemic, you had an average of about 7% growth rate every year. So I think it's fair to say GNH has created dramatic achievements in Bhutan in promoting well-being. That's not to say there aren't problems there. There's certainly a lot of problems there. Youth employment is a challenge, and I think our work with Humber is going to try to address that. Gender inequality is still a challenge. There's still a legacy of a conflict from the 1990s. But overall, I think GNH is this alternative model of development, a holistic and integrated model of development. And it's certainly a model of development that I think those of us in the rest of the world should pay attention to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kent. I know I said at the beginning, I was very excited to hear more about gross national happiness, and I was not wrong. I did not know that there was so much care for their interaction with animals as well. But thank you for that insightful reflection. Oh, sorry. There is a question in the chat box from Jeff. He is asking, could you please share what some of the indicators for GNH might be in Bhutan?
Good question. In the interest of time, I won't go through all of them, but GNH initially was constructed as 4 pillars. Those are equitable socioeconomic development, cultural integrity, sustainable environment, and good governance. Those have now been expanded to 9 different domains, and all of those 9 domains are made up of 33 different indicators that sort of expand on those 4 pillars. And what the Bhutanese government does is every 5 years they carry out a national survey where they measure those 9 domains, and they come up with sort of a single figure of GNH, or happiness, in the country. But if you send me your details, I can connect you to the specific indicators that make up the framework.
Thank you very much, Kent. I will, oh yes, Jeff will reach out and send the message for you so you guys can connect and talk about this later as well. Okay, thank you everyone. This does bring, this is the end of our event now. Thank you so much for coming out and staying the extra, I said 15 minutes, it's now been an extra 20 minutes. Thank you very much to all our guest speakers for sharing their stories with us. And thank you to all our listeners for taking the time to participate in this event. Again, if you have any questions for our speakers, reach out. We will connect you through email. Well, yes, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day.